Hi, I'm Seamless, and today I'm going to talk about making masks. Using ZGE and whatever kind of source you're going to use, masks are like pretty well valuable. They're used to do all the things, all the neat kind of any amount of related or tracking, not even just like motion tracking, but stuff like when on what layer should be a thing visible. Masks are the thing that does that particular job. So right now we're looking at this RGB floaty thing I have, and this is actually just an object in my hand that we're processing from my webcam. Boom! Here's actual. Look at this drumstick with a little RGB bob. So the idea of this device was to try and use it to detect not just position or like XYZ, but rotation with the green and the blue, and rotation with the red. Because you can see when it's completely like linear to the camera, you can't see the red. So the idea is that like, oh, cool. The more red there is, the more. And it's interesting because I can get that pretty good, and I can get this pretty good, but I can't get it to like know to do the rotation this way. Ah. Anyway, I'm using this to demonstrate. So cool. When I want to do those sorts of things, I'm doing stuff like, oh, I want to track the red value, the green value, the blue value. But all that's happening like in normal time without even it being present, especially skin tones. And there's no amount of whiteness you can be that doesn't have red in your skin tone. There's also not a level of dark you can be that doesn't have red in your skin tone. Skin tone is red. So that means moving, especially the red. And plus, look at my background, right? And I had this big old like black curtain thing going on to hide the big white outline of my door, just to make visibly doing this a little bit easier. But what is it that I do to get there? So using color correction, you can essentially distress, distort, and compress the visual sphere of levels to represent only what like the bit of it you want to see. So like for example, the reds, they're both red. They're both very high level red. Like the red meter is pretty high up in them, but one of them is very clearly a different kind of red. And if you can visibly tell that there is a difference, that means that they're separate in some way that's regular, and you can isolate them. So you explore the powers of what visible information you're working with. Like I'm just using my webcam. I'm also zoomed in, so it looks like probably all jaggy and stupid. But because I have a really blue box over there, I want to get out of the frame. Anyway, do a pretty basic thing like just move the contrast around. You can see how like the basic sort of regular colored edges blur together to be just a thing, and masks respond to dark and bright usually. If I'm doing the color tracking information, I don't need to go much farther than that other thing I had before. But actually using a mask is using the level information of being like, oh, cool, where there is not black, there is thing happening. So here's how you get your you want to get to the situation where you have this going on. So you're like, okay, only where this is visible is there a thing happening. So you get there by like these are all real specific values, and you can see how the gamma is real low. It's because the contrast is one way to get it to just sort of really separate colors, and that's kind of what you want to do. You want to spoosh them together to be a flat plane as much as you can, but then you want to dictate the plane, and gamma is sort of what that job does. So this is how, for example, the background of the walls red starts to go away before this thing's red, because this thing's red is more powerful regularly. It is above the threshold of invisibility that one solved, and then you adjust for taste and level there. And what's interesting is that saturation is essentially the contrast control, but just for the color like information, and not the luminance information. And that does wonders there. Value like is exposure essentially, like, but just to the overall math, not to like this is not actually controlling the webcam. And yeah, so you tweak it enough and you work around how far up and down you need the colors to be, and eventually you can isolate the right power plane that only has whatever it is you need. So like right now I'm going after these colors, but I can also go after if you saw the last viewer track review, you saw me do my skin tone, and that is pretty similar. It's not too far from doing this, but like you can see how are pretty well already there. Like without having to stick in the frame, if it's just about my skin tone and not my skin tone, my skin color power, except for like the heads of my guitars over there and that little corner up there and the light reflecting off the microphone and that kind of thing, is very far away from most of the other objects in the frame. So that means that I can more easily isolate it from the frame. Plus, I have my beard, and what's hilarious about this as a beard, as a thing, is that it's essentially like it's a real life mask. It's actually because of this, I have it as a very clear face plate all the time because I could just up the contrast, and it's just an outline. My beard outlines my face. That's just too handy. Um, yeah. So what? The gamma. So you do gamma value controls, and this is not super different from just doing contrast. But when you're doing it like this, you can sort of. It's like having saturation controls where one just kind of goes in the way, but now you can do this and then also this, and then also do a kind of a per color thing. So what you didn't see me do to get this was mess with the hues, and you can see when I do, interesting things happen. Like, hey, check it out! Now you can see my face. This was not visible a second ago. But how is that, considering that it didn't have the level of information that I needed to a second ago? And this is what's really, really, really cool about the hue control, is that the hue control shifts colors around until they are, but like when you get the RGB visible like this, it shifts the other ones around until they are this intensity, until they're that in this thing's profile, like per color. So this is how you get it when you have a color that's not RG and B, real specifically. Like if you had like this actual purple color, you could use the hue to shift it around until it visibly showed up as red. And now you could use it as the red value without having to do color math, because that's what I was going to do before. On top of that, this is also how you get things that like, yeah, you can tell, because again, I said before, if you could identify visibly the difference between the reds, if you could tell that, yeah, they're both red, but one is different. And you can tell by my skin tone, like, yeah, this is a kind of white, but it's not the same kind of white as that, like a little corner tippy business up there. That means that you can isolate them and separate them. And picking for it is a question of just like shifting around colors sometimes, because here's something. We talk about RGB like they're like these super primary things, and they are, because hey, check it out, here they are, but they're not equal power levels. I'm blue and red. Red's high level, blue is low level, green is higher than red. I'm not sure, but the point is that like if you shut the hue around, then all of a sudden it's a shade of a different power level, and it puts it up just above the visual threshold, and now you have a mask of that exact thing, even though it wasn't a deliberately specifically chosen RGB element like made to be visible. That's how you make another thing. Like, so like you have an image that's like something like complicated like this, where you have a yellow mask object you want to complicate up. That's how you target for it. You figure out its light level, isolate for its light level, and then hue it around until it's one of the primary colors, and then you can just do some adding and subtracting until it's the only thing left visible. Excuse me. So what do you do when you have a mask? Like, what is the whole point of that? So check this out. Let's say we have our this is one of the ones I had the most fun with. This is just a lava noise map, and you can get it to look and do lots of things. You have size controls. I like that they refer to this as octaves, because it really brings to focus some things about spatial complexity. Like, not even just in visual stuff, but audio stuff. Like, I like it all the time, mixing levels and having too many things in your music, like having a very busy picture with not a lot of compositional like thought out elements. And like this is one of those things where it's like, oh cool, it's octave scale, so it's like, oh yeah, it's higher frequency and therefore smaller, and therefore more dense and more active. And it's really quite something to see that like theory of stuff kind of layer together. I just realized this would be way better to do it like the light version. But anyway, moral of the story, you get a map like this, and then you want to mask it out. There's a bunch of ways to do that. One of the easiest and quickest ways is to use straight up like the mask if you have a black and white set mask. In this case, we have the RGB mask. So we're going to use the alpha key. And I didn't make the thing. So we're going to make the thing by turning on the guy and moving him to buffer. Look, there he is. You can see stuff. Wee. So now there he is in a buffer. Ta-da. So if I mask a thing, wee, haha. So that right there is basically the idea. We're using the thing that we made the mask into to be a filter for this other element. That's the whole real purpose of the task. So visually speaking, like this is how you apply a mask, but you can see how like crazy fake that looks. That's like yeah, cool. You can see a static image, it's not moving. Like what's the big idea? Well, you can do funner stuff. Like for example, what if instead of this, I just have the layer from the dealie, and then I use the lava layer as a displacement layer. Displacement is like my favorite freaking thing. So check this out. Look at this. Wee. Wee. So this idea now we're using the lava as the mask. The lava is the mask that's driving the displacement information thingy, which is a more or less up and down. I think it's called displacement. What it's doing is that it's moving the pixels of the image around based on like what would be black and white math. Like it doesn't really change a lot much if it turns black and white, but it's because it's all one color, it's all red. Just a difference in level. But it's the same idea, is moving it across and around based on that input information, and that's just super cool. What I would do like for this further actually is sort of the opposite. I turn on this, and I would displace it by this guy, and now that he's got that mask going, this going, then we can go get the mask from the alpha key. Let's do chroma key side. Yeah. Cool, why not? Cool. So now, like, you can kind of see vaguely internally that there's actually like a displacement of it. It makes it look slightly more realistic. It's not moving with it, but that's the whole point of the motion tracking stuff. If I went through the thing of doing the adding and mathing of the blue plus minus whatever to get this all to be motion tracked, I could just apply that to the straight up X and Y position of this stuff, which makes it move. And that is really the whole purpose of that, because then it's just very quickly very realistic. If you can get it even just to move when it's moving, not necessarily move accurately, like move to the place it's going. You can see my mouth. Let's see if I change the hue up. Woo. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yes. So this was how I was doing the VTR. Like I was using my skin tone as the mask, and I was masking a thing, and then I was using frame blur to be delayed, and then I just kind of kept messing with masks and filters and layers and displacement stuff and pixelating. So you saw me do that here. This image source input for these mask inputters. That's what they're for. But there's also a lot of other duders that have inputters that you might not be expecting. Like for example, actually, what I really didn't expect was this guy, but it's not really relevant to this discussion. I was just going to do a thing that pixelate. Like the pixelate one is super cool because normally it just straight, does pixelating. Way cool, neat. But you could also tell it to pixelate based on an input. So here I am now pixelating it based on the webcam, and like it's using the color information to determine this value, this resolution value, instead of just being a blanket. Oh my gosh. What? Okay. Hi. I'm like Doom. I'm in a DOS box game right now. This is whatever. Moral of the story is it's using the webcam, which is kind of stretched out weirdly right now, to drive that resolution knob. You see how you can kind of see the individual pixels on my forehead? It's because my forehead's blown out in white, and it's telling it to just be up all the way up, so you're getting the fully resolute version. And then if I go this, like that's why like pretty far away, it's hard to tell it's happening at all, because it's not. You can tell it's happening in the highest value parts. So that's what that does. But a lot of these, whoa, that is a neat. I gotta do that with something. But see, this is what I'm talking about. Is that stuff you can drive stuff with masks that does stuff you might not expect it to. In fact, I probably don't even need. Yeah. Oh, that looks like something. It looks like more Doom. That looks like more. It looks like I have 90s textures going on in my window right now. That's neat. Well, oh yeah, because I'm displacing stuff. Weird. Yeah. So you get masked by have content, yeah, and you apply them to things in the image source input into stuff, and that's why you want to make them in the first place, because they're real neat at the application. Making them though, you want to be light touch about it. So this is actually a bit of a stretch I've done it this way like I was saying before, like, oh, the camera is all stretched out. So the what I should have done is had inserted here a layer of an image that is just this guy who is its own buffer, just the camera by himself, so that the camera source that we're turning into the mask remains the same. And then in here is the thing that's going to calculate the mask, so it's getting the info. That's cool. And then later when I was trying to layer it together with the real guy, it would be this correct, like, it wouldn't be weird and small. Yeah, so you get the one input, and now this one input is the whole input for everything you want to drive the input with, and then your next input is the mask of it that you make. In this case, it's this guy. Hi, he. And when you figure out how and where you got your mask to be what you want it to be, then you start, you send that to the buffer too, and now you have these two things, as in this case, A and B, that are input to be changing things. So turn on things like the lava. Let me blend it. So we choose layer D here. Bam. So let's turn off our displacement. Boop. Normal. Here we go. Here's the correct layer A. Here's layer B. So I want to displace the lava layer, level 1, with this, level 3. Which is basically like the room. And like, yeah, cool, there I am. Now, it looks weird around the places that aren't me, and that's totally okay, because after this, what we're going to do is we're going to take the mask from here, and now all we're going to see is where I am. So it doesn't matter how weird it looks outside of it. And my lips are strangely super red. Whatever, I guess. I guess it's because it's actually red instead of hued red, but anyway. And then we pixelate it by this, and it is still just kind of a strange because I'm using the webcam. Don't use the webcam, use A. There it is. Yeah. Now I have like pixelated fire going on. I'm a little bit delayed now. Not by that much. Yeah. So this is some of the cool things you can do with masks and how you get them to be there. And I personally prefer this particular workflow of like getting your masks and your sources kind of ready to go early, and then using them as very early. But it's a bit like sidechain sources in FL. Like if you have kicks and snares, you want them to be way in the early numbers, so that you can you don't have to worry about conflicts later or moving stuff or things getting out of the chain because you move things, and that happens a lot with the buffer system here. So beware of that. Yes. Cool. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And as usual, have a nice day. I really like messing with these effects. Yeah.